Hello and welcome to the program. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our guest today is a brand new guest, Aida Vazin. She's here today to talk with us as a licensed marriage and family therapist with GPS counselors, specializing in the psychology of relationships. Aida works with first-generation immigrants that are struggling to adapt to the lifestyle and social environment of the United States while trying to balance the expectations and obligations imposed by their family of origin. And Aida's going to talk with us today on Health Professional Radio about how that affects them from a psychological standpoint. Welcome to the program, Aida.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that introduction. Yes, to basically just go straight into what's going on here is this nation is definitely filled with a lot of first-generation immigrants or children of first-generation immigrants. And I believe it's a really big issue that doesn't get addressed well. I usually say this is the tagline for those who are experiencing this. Their parents will go ahead and say things like, "Oh, you've become too Americanized." And that creates a lot of discomfort and confusion because this is all the child knows and this is where the child's grown up and whatnot. And then at the same time, they have these strong cultural roots and obligations to abide by. So there's a bit of a dissonance going on there. Because most cultures operate differently than the United States. Most other cultures, it's very, community-based, the hierarchy in the family and respect for the family, and family stays with you. And, you got to do this because of the family name. You have to do that because of the family status and this and that and whatnot. And in the United States, it's a very individualistic approach where you can move up, you can do this, you do have a voice, you can do this by yourself or with a team and whatnot. So it's a different way of coming up, of being raised, where I would say children here have a lot more of a voice in the family, where I would say children from other cultures, not as much. It's more of a hierarchy.
So it's basically experiencing culture shock are we talking extended periods of time, or is this something that you can maybe alleviate early on as opposed to things being a little bit harder as the child gets to be 17, 18, maybe 20 years old?
Yeah, I think it's stuff that could definitely be alleviated earlier on, and it just comes down to general education. I think parent and family education would be the key to that, to help assimilation and growing up in a bicultural upbringing or environment in that sense, and the impacts that it has on the children. A lot of immigrants that come here, they're coming here because most of them, not all of them, most of them are coming here because they're coming towards an opportunity, towards a better life. Usually people that uproot and leave their country, they're not doing it because they're having the time of their life. They're doing it because they have a lack of resources or lack of opportunities, or, quality of life is not as good, or some are coming here as refugees and whatnot. So they're usually running away from something or escaping something and running towards a better life here. And then there's this sense of obligation that comes, a lot of the kids, and it's a beautiful thing to have. I believe it's a beautiful approach to have, or my parents sacrificed so much for me to come here and this and that. But it turns out in a way where it's kind of like there's this sometimes spoken or even unspoken pressure that because I did this for you, you have to do this for me and whatnot. So it's like now you have to, work for the family, provide for the family and whatnot. And so it doesn't necessarily give the full opportunity for growth and development. The full opportunity that the child could have gets hindered to some extent.
So we're talking about the full opportunities of taking advantage of, the entire American dream, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
You mentioned coming here, running from something, running to a better opportunity, or at least an opportunity. So what do you say to the parents who have facilitated this passage here with these kids who don't necessarily want to give up, the sense of family as they've known it? They just want to be able to live without, war in the streets or poverty or bread lines or whatever, maybe political reasons. In the household, it's one way, but the child can take advantage of what's going on in the United States and still have that respect from the homeland for family and other traditions, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it comes down to just general education, just basic general education, that knowing, for example, for a child to be able to respond back or say something or have an opinion doesn't necessarily mean that it's a form of disrespect. It's what's encouraged here. And rather than discouraging the child for learning that, being adaptable to the environment that they're growing up in, to also teach them awareness. Like, okay, this is, these are the kind of etiquettes that we grew up with, and these are things that are important. And I understand that you're growing up this way, or if I don't understand, let me understand how you're seeing things. Learn to ask perspectives of the children, because it gets a little confusing at times. It's a bit of a split. They go to school around media with their friends. They're encouraged to be one way. And then at home with the groups of their cultural origin, they're encouraged to be another way and whatnot. So there's an area there that's disconnected. And I find that education and open-mindedness is a perfect way to bridge that gap.
Mm-hmm. Where can we go and get some more information online about this dissonance caused by this culture shock? And what types of, mechanisms or methodologies can you suggest to teach the child that there has to be a balance between what you came from, who you are and where you want to be, and who you want to be in the environment that you find yourself in?
Okay, those are great questions. I think doing a search on acculturation, the word acculturation itself would be very helpful. It's just a process of an immigrant getting integrated into the new society that they're in, or in the new country that they're in. And there's a lot of steps to just general understanding and education of the importance of that and what it means to be integrated in the society. And if there's not enough integration, it could marginalize someone, which is not helpful for their growth in any way. And then what are some of the things that I would recommend? I would recommend people just bring awareness. Just bring awareness. This might not be something that's been on a lot of people's radar because it just hasn't been talked about, or it hasn't been brought up in this way. Like there might be some internal tension or anxiety or something going on, but not necessarily. But the families or the children don't know where it's coming from. I'm always a big fan. Go and consult with somebody. You can look up people who do this as a specialty and do a consultation with them and see, what are some pointers and pillars that I could learn along the way. I think open communication, being open-minded, just to keep it very general, yet go to the root of it. I think having an open mind. I think being an immigrant in any country requires a level of open-mindedness. You're going to a brand new place with new rules and a new language most of the time and all these kind of things. So it does require a level of open-mindedness. Go ahead and take that into the family as well. Rather than having it be so fear-based, like we have to stay really tight-knit because we don't know what to do. And it's normal. It's normal to want to do something like that, but to give themselves permission to expand, find their communities, find resources. There's so many local resources available for people in their communities. And I believe that most immigrants that do come here with the availability and accessibility to get connected to social groups and community groups.
Do you think that some of the availability of a community of like immigrants is normally where they gravitate to first to try and find out, to try and learn the ropes? Are you saying basically to kind of water down some of the communities for, just examples, the Chinatowns, the little Africas, those types of communities? Are you suggesting that they should be a little bit more watered down as opposed to being as thickly populated with like immigrants?
I think that's a good place to, no, I wouldn't necessarily say starting watering down, because there's always a fear-based component when it comes to all of these things. People are going to gravitate towards what's familiar because that's how they know to go forward. I'm going to gravitate towards an English speaking person to understand what it's like, to learn the ropes in, let's say, a new country where it's only Spanish speaking and I don't understand the language and whatnot. So you're going to start with what you can already connect with. And that would be the communities, the maybe saturated communities in that sense. And I would say bringing the awareness into those communities itself. So not necessarily having people be forced to water it down or to give it up, because it's hard. It's hard in general, to give up one's own upbringing and roots and culture. And another one, we are in a society where it does support people's, areas to have that tight-knit cultural experience. I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing that is a possibility, but not to have it be isolated from the rest of the area. There needs to be an integration. There needs to be something that connects. Okay, this is not just serving and catering to this group of people, but it's going to be open to more than that. I could give an example, like there's a Vietnamese community around here, and they're talking about, we're not getting more business in our food court. And I went and I looked around, I'm like, well, nothing's written in English, so you can only serve and cater to those who read and write Vietnamese or speak Vietnamese, and so just kind of first steps like that to make it open and integrate like that.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
Yes, actually. Yeah, I do have a video where it's about couples getting married here. It's about, for example, Afghan culture and some of the reasons and dynamics why people get married or communication issues that they have. And I do bring it back to the same concept because it tends to be a little bit of an escape from maybe strong family pressures, and let me get married and feel like I'm a little bit more free. But, it's the same thing that's repeating and whatnot. And again, I bring it back to education, like get to know yourself, use your options here, exercise your opportunities here and whatnot. But yes, to give a pretty long answer to that, yes, I do have a video out there.
Thanks for coming in. More information available at www.gpscounselor.com. Aida Vazin, thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us today.
Thank you very much, Neal. It was a pleasure.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Transcripts and audio of the program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, listen in, and download at SoundCloud. And be sure and visit our affiliates page when you visit our platform at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au.